Thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to explore some of the considerations when building your intranet in SharePoint or Viva Connections. My name is Ben Skelton, and I'm the Vice President of Habanero, and with me is Will.
Hi, everyone. I'm Will Hardy, Practice Lead for Employer Portals at Habanero.
Today's webinar will be approximately 45 minutes. We won't have a live Q&A, but feel free to enter questions and comments in the chat, and we'll follow up with you after the event. We'll also be sending everyone a link to the recording. For those of you that aren't familiar with Habanero, we're passionate about humanizing the world of work. We do this by helping organizations create intentional cultures. This can include everything from helping you articulate your purpose and values to assessing and evolving your culture. We also help companies build community and connection through employee mindsets and archetypes, and by developing an integrated internal communications channel strategy. And finally, digital. We help organizations understand and adopt Microsoft 365, SharePoint, and Viva Engage with a focus on building culture, community, and connection. We've also been partnering with internal communicators for the last 20 years to design and build award-winning intranets. We've taken all that knowledge and expertise and packaged it into an intranet product for SharePoint called Go, which will be part of today's presentation. So, before we begin, I thought I'd share a little story. Last month, I was down in Redmond representing Go at the Reagan Internal Communications Conference. Habanero had a booth, and we had a chance to talk to a ton of people. When we asked conference attendees what platform their intranet was built on, about 95% said SharePoint. However, when we asked them how it was going, the vast majority said not well. This, unfortunately, is the reality of many SharePoint intranets, but as we'll discover today, it doesn't have to be. In today's webinar, we'll start by reviewing some of the strengths of SharePoint. There are good reasons why so many intranets are built on the platform, and we'll share some of them. After that, we'll explore some of the common challenges and gaps communicators face and how you can use Go to address them. Finally, we'll take a peek at Viva Connections. Viva Connections include some intranet-like capabilities, so we'll share some of the highlights and things to be aware of. So with that, I'll hand it over to Will to talk about the strengths of SharePoint.
Thanks, Ben. Well, if you're attending this webinar today, then chances are you're either currently using SharePoint in some fashion or consider it to build your next intranet. And you're not alone. Many organizations, large and small, leverage SharePoint and M365 today. And that's for good reason. There's many strengths of SharePoint that, when you put them all together, are pretty compelling and hard for others to match. So in our opinion, here are 6 of SharePoint's biggest strengths to consider when you're creating an intranet on the platform. First is ease of content authoring. And no, this isn't a joke, as some of you that have used past versions of SharePoint might be thinking. The content authoring experience in the latest version of SharePoint Online, which is known as Modern SharePoint, is incredible. Microsoft created an entirely new authoring experience from the ground up, and we think they did a pretty great job. It's flexible, it's user-friendly, there's no technical skill required, and we're still amazed at how quickly people get up to speed using the new interface. It's perfect for distributed content authoring scenarios. We have intranets with literally hundreds of content authors, and their ability to start using it with limited training is pretty impressive. Next up is the fact that SharePoint is already a familiar platform to many. It's likely already used in your organization. If not for hosting your intranet, then for scenarios like team sites, document management, collaboration, etc. By creating your intranet on SharePoint, you'll be keeping it under the same umbrella as the rest of your employees' productivity tools, with a consistent and familiar UX. SharePoint and M365 represents a powerful and integrated ecosystems of content, collaboration, and communication tools. Why is this important? Well, communicators often struggle getting the attention of their entire workforce. And in many organizations, a significant percentage of employee audiences work extensively within tools like Microsoft Teams, Outlook, and the rest of the Office suite. So you're really meeting your users where they already are. If you create yet another place for your users to go, such as the case with standalone communication tools and apps, there's a pretty good chance you'll lose their attention and not obtain the adoption you were looking for. It's also important to note that we see a general trend towards consolidation and reducing the number of systems that employees need to navigate. Number 3 on our list is search. An intranet is often seen as a gateway to organizational content. And much like the content authoring experience refresh, modern SharePoint provides an entirely new search experience as well. It can search across your intranet content, people profiles, collaboration sites, OneDrive, and even external sources like a ServiceNow knowledge base. It leverages the Microsoft Graph and AI technology to present each employee with results that are most relevant to them. With this machine learning intelligence, results are continually improving and fine-tuning over time based on your patterns of work and interaction with colleagues. We've moved a lot of clients from classic SharePoint to modern SharePoint over the last few years, and the number one benefit we hear about from them, other than the content authoring experience, is how much better search is. So search in SharePoint has come a long way. Fourth on our list is stability and performance. Intranets can be a really critical tool for operational content and for crisis communications. They often store important content that's required during an emergency. With Microsoft's super robust global network of data centers, content and application redundancy, and performance accelerators that are baked right into the platform, you're getting top-notch reliability. 5, and a topic that's top of mind for many these days, is security. If you're already using Microsoft 365, this means that your IT and information security teams have most likely already done their due diligence on the platform. They've configured threat protection, identity and access controls, and have evaluated how Microsoft encrypts, stores, and manages your data and information. You can certainly rest a little easier knowing the focus that Microsoft puts on security and data protection on a continual basis. And for those rallying support for an intranet business case and navigating those hurdles, you'll certainly have a much easier time with your IT partners if the ask is to build on SharePoint. And finally, we have innovation, and we've got to give credit where it's due here. Microsoft has been working at an impressive pace, adding new capabilities and features to the platform. If you followed a steady stream of platform announcements coming out of the recent Microsoft Ignite conference, you'll probably appreciate the magnitude of the investments made on the roadmap. In the past years, we've seen major additions like Microsoft Viva and AI capabilities through Copilot. If you've worried about selecting a platform that won't become dated or obsolete, then Microsoft is certainly a good bet. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Ben to explore some of the gaps that you might want to consider.
Thanks, Will. That was a great overview of why SharePoint makes a solid foundation for your intranet. However, as I shared at the beginning of the presentation, communicators who build their intranets on SharePoint do experience some common challenges. Let's explore them. The first is an inability to present preference-based content. Let's start by talking about the out-of-the-box experience. One of SharePoint's strengths that Will didn't mention is that it gives you the ability to target and/or security trim content to different users based on their Entra ID groups. For those of you that aren't familiar with Entra ID, it's the new name for Azure Active Directory. Security trimming and/or targeting is useful when you only want a certain group of users to see and/or access information. For example, you might use SharePoint's built-in audience targeting and security trimming features to show certain web parts or content only to leaders in your organization. However, there's often content on your intranet that would benefit from targeting, but that might be hard to do. This could be because the data in your Entra ID might not be reliable, or you might want employees to opt in or out themselves. Communicators that are using SharePoint out of the box often tell us that they'd like their employees to select the type of news and events they're interested in. Unfortunately, SharePoint doesn't provide a mechanism for this. However, this is a key feature in Go. Let's take a peek at how Go handles preference-based content. Here, we've got a Go intranet built in SharePoint for a fictional home builder called Loom. You can see here it's built into modern SharePoint, and I want to call your attention to a few areas of the intranet. The first is in the center. This is the featured news component, and it allows communicators to share 1, 2, or 3 featured news items. You'll notice a few differences from that out-of-the-box experience. The first is all news can have tags, so things like company updates or people. The second is that you can associate a location to news, in this example, Vancouver or Los Angeles. Scrolling further down on the page, we have one of Go's marquee features. This is the What's Happening rollup. This is a collection of all your corporate news, but it can also include items from a Teams channel or Viva Engage items. You can see, as in the featured news, news has categories like company updates or employee experience, and can also have locations associated with it. In this case, London, New York, and Vancouver. Scrolling down further on the page, you can see upcoming events. Like news, events can have categories and locations and other metadata associated with them. Finally, announcements. Announcements are a great way to communicate operational updates or leader news. These are nice, bite-sized snippets. Now, you might be wondering, why am I showing you all of these areas? Well, the key here is that users can select their preferences for all of these components. On the right-hand side here, you'll notice this thing that we call the springboard. This houses a number of different tools, from a people finder to your quick links. If I go into my settings here, this is where I can configure my interests and actually let the intranet know what I'm interested in. So you can see here, I can select my interests for announcements, news, or events. So if I click on Edit for News, you'll notice I'm able to select the categories of news I'm interested in and the locations. And of course, I always get asked by communicators, well, what if we don't want anybody to unselect from that category? You can see a little example of that here in company updates where I can't unselect from it. Of course, this can also be expanded to use any different type of metadata. So you can use things like department, division. The possibilities are really endless here. But the key is you're actually creating a very personalized intranet experience and making sure people only see the content that's relevant to them. So with that, let's go back to our presentation. The second challenge communicators face is that they just aren't happy with the usability of their out-of-the-box SharePoint intranets. Although they look modern and clean, they receive feedback that users can't find information and often get lost. Because of this, we built several navigation controls and other essentials in Go to create a more usable experience. Let's take a look. So let's go to the Our Company area of our intranet. You'll notice here that we've got a lot of different information on who we are, our business, and our culture. Let's take a peek at the Working From Home page. One thing we noticed is that modern SharePoint is really flat, and users were getting really lost. There was no idea of like in-page navigation or a lot of the things that you would expect. So we've added some of those controls. You can see here that we've got a breadcrumb on our page. This helps people understand where the page they're looking at is in the navigation structure of the site. You'll also notice a few other things. We've got an On This Page control, which will automatically take the headings on the page and create a bit of a table of contents, making it easy for users to jump down to the section that makes sense for them. You'll also notice if I scroll down on this page, an item here, which is a navigation control. This is a very common control that you would expect most solutions or content management systems to have, but it's something that was missing from SharePoint. And when we were doing research with organizations, what we were finding is that users were getting really lost. They would get to a page, they wouldn't know where they were or how to navigate to other pages in the section. Here you can see we've made that easy. I can just go from Working Home to maybe our Giving Back page. And now you'll notice I've got this page, I'm in this section, and it's pretty easy. And so I can see here a commitment to giving back, how we can give back, and I can see where I am in the navigation of the site. Another thing that we found is that for some users, they don't actually like using these flyout menus. They use them when they're familiar with the intranet, but what they want to do is get a real sense of the structure of a site. And you can see there, if I click on Our Company, we've got an automated way of creating these pages for users to ground them. So as a communicator, I don't have to come in here and add all these pages. It's automatically created for me for the roll-up of this section. You can also see that you can add other items to this page, like other helpful links, or how to get in touch with various teams like the employee experience team. Next up is event registration and management. Fostering learning and connection across your organization is more important than ever in a hybrid world, and giving people a single place to know what's going on can be extremely useful. Let's start by taking a look at the out-of-the-box events experience in SharePoint. As you can see, you can display your upcoming events on your homepage. Users can click on an event to view the details of the event, or click on the little icon at the bottom of each event and add it to their calendar. The challenge for many communicators is events themselves. They're very basic. Events can have a title, a banner image, a start time, an end time, a location, online meeting link, category, and a text description with links about your event. We heard from many communicators that this wasn't enough and that they were using different platforms like Eventbrite to manage their internal events. Based on this, we really leaned into the event experience in Go. Let's take a look. If I scroll back to our intranet and scroll down to events, you can see here that we've got our events listing, which I covered in the last segment. Let's actually dive into an event and take a look at the page. You can see here we've got an event for a pottery party. Make your own bowl or mug. You'll notice a few things. So the first is that events are actually on a SharePoint page. And that's great because as a communicator, it gives me a lot of flexibility. I can use different web parts and components on this page to make it really stand out. We can see here we've got our when and we've got our where, we've got our categories. Let's scroll down a little bit. You can see here that we've got information about the event. I can actually register for this event. As I'm an administrator, I can manage this event. And you can see here we've got this really awesome page. We've also got things like comments on this page, so people can actually talk about the event, that they're getting excited, and share kind of comments or questions as well with the organizer. Of course, event registration is a big deal. You can see here we've got this button to register for events. Go handles event registration, it handles waitlisting, and it handles pre-event questionnaires. So let's take a peek. I'm going to register for this event. I'm actually going to add a guest. I'm going to add Susan as my guest. Hit next. And so you can see here, you can even have these rich event questionnaires. So things like what my favorite color is, what my meal preference is, and what am I hoping to learn? Well, let's do how to make an ashtray. It's a really awesome experience. We've got clients that use this for everything from their town halls all the way to registration for fitness classes at their corporate gym. So it's a really great way of really consolidating all the events across an organization and managing them in one place and making sure that they get the visibility they need. Now, a topic that all of us at Habanero are passionate about, employee recognition. Recognition is a pillar of a great workplace, and there are a couple of ways your employees can recognize each other in Microsoft 365. The first is in Viva Engage. In this example, you can see that we're in Habanero's Viva Engage network. There are different types of posts you can create, including praise. You can praise multiple people for a job well done and create a post describing why you are giving the praise. Once posted, it lives in the community. Although this is a great feature, these posts are part of a community's feed and quickly become lost in active communities. There's no central place to see praise you've received or praise you've given to others. They're just really there for a moment in time. Microsoft Teams includes more robust peer-to-peer recognition. Let's take a look. Although it's a little bit hidden, clicking the plus at the bottom left of the new post and selecting praise brings up a card to send praise to a colleague. There are a few fun features like the ability to pick a title with an associated emoji and a background color. As you can see, the recognition is posted into the team. The nice thing about recognition in Teams is that you can see all the praise you have sent and or received. Praise in Microsoft Teams is more robust than Viva Engage, but the team-based nature of Microsoft Teams makes the feature a little less compelling for enterprise recognition. Now let's take a look at how we handle recognition in Go. Let's go back to our homepage and scroll down to the recognition component. As you can see here, this is where anybody in the organization can recognize anybody for doing a good job. I want to call your attention to a few areas. The first is the experience to give recognition. If I click on Give Recognition, I can recognize up to 10 people. I'm going to recognize Sam for an awesome job he did. So I just type in Sam, and I choose Sam, and hit Next. This is one of my favorite parts of this experience. The first thing I do is select up to 3 reasons why I want to give this recognition. What's really exciting is this is configurable, so this can tie into your organizational values or attributes that are really important to you that you want your employees to exhibit. So I'm going to recognize Sam for his mentorship, his curiosity, and his compassion, and hit Next. Now I can actually create a description of why I'm recognizing Sam. You'll notice something kind of unique though. At the bottom is Make this post public. We've done a lot of research around recognition, and we found something interesting. There's a good number of people in organizations that feel that public recognition kind of is a little icky and they don't like it. Some of them feel that ultimately it's more about the person giving the recognition than the person receiving the recognition. And it seems a little self-promoting. So we give people the options. You can actually say, okay, I want to make this post public or I want to make this post private. And then you can choose who gets notified about the recognition other than the person being recognized. Of course, we generally recommend that leaders recognize in public, but giving employees the ability to figure out themselves if they want the post to be private or public is really useful. There's a few other areas I want to call your attention to. The first is if I dive into See All recognition. As you can see here, this is a collection of all the recognition. What's really nice is I can see recognition that I've sent or recognition that I've received. We have a number of clients where employees will actually take their recognition into their performance reviews to show how they've impacted or helped other people in the organization. And what's really cute is I can click on recognition that I've received, and you'll notice here that I can actually print a physical certificate of my recognition. This is kind of nice. I can put it on my office wall, my cubicle wall, my home wall, wherever you're working, especially for a project that you're really proud of, where that was a really heavy lift. It can be a nice way of kind of recognizing it. Now let's explore including user-submitted photography on your intranet. Viva Engage is a feature-rich platform that enables employees to share images with their communities. However, the options are much more limited for communicators that aren't using Viva Engage. Image galleries in SharePoint are pretty simple. SharePoint includes a web part that provides the ability to add pictures to an image gallery on a page using a brick, grid, or carousel layout. And you can also arrange images into a gallery-like view, and clicking an image will show a large version. We think it's really important for people to share their stories across your organization through images, and so we've done something different with Go. Let's take a peek. Let's scroll down to the very bottom of the intranet homepage. You'll see here our culture in pictures. Of course, we've got our promoted photo on the left, as well as other user-submitted photos on the right. If I click on a photo, I get an awesome lightbox view. I can scroll between the photos. You'll also notice a few other things. The first is that we've got people tagging in the photo. We've also got social, so people can comment on photos. You can download a high-quality version of the photo. This is kind of a nice hack for communicators in a way, because they're often looking for stories to share on Instagram. This is a nice way of seeing what's going on in your organization and maybe downloading that photo to add to that social network. And of course, you can also report a photo. We allow users to upload photos directly to the intranet, or you can select a moderation queue. The choice is yours. And we make photos really easy to upload. You can see here, if I want to submit a photo, I can just drag this photo from my desktop. Go also supports the Viva Connections app in Microsoft Teams, which makes it easy to select the image from your mobile device and submit it, which is perfect for frontline team members or people in the field. Now let's talk about bulletin boards, which are often used for a company buy and sell. One way you can create a bulletin board or buy and sell out of the box is to use Viva Engage. Several companies I work with have set up a community Engage for a marketplace. It's simple and it works, but it doesn't provide a lot of the features you'd expect in even a simple buy and sell. Go provides an elevated marketplace experience, which can drive a lot of traffic and engagement to your intranet. Let's take a peek. So if we scroll down on our homepage, you'll notice we've got our bulletin board. This is where people in the organization can sell, trade, or give away things. You can see here that we've got 4 different items. Bulletin board items can have a location, in this case, Calgary, Los Angeles, or Vancouver. And I can see things like the name and prices. Let me click on this listing, and you can see here a few kind of cool things. The first is that I can have multiple photos from my listing. And the second is that I can see who posted it. And then I can contact Drew. And Drew can set up this listing to say, contact me by Teams, contact me by phone, or by email. It's a really nice way of connecting people across your organization and adding something that's really valuable for your employees. We've also got a nice listing view here, so I can see all the various listings in our organization. I can see things that are for rent or for sale, by location, or by category. So in some organizations, this drives a ton of traffic. It's a really nice way of getting people to come to your intranet. Next up is finding people. As Will talked about at the beginning of the presentation, SharePoint provides a powerful unified search experience. You can use the search experience at the top of the page to search for documents, sites, and people. In this example, I'm searching for a person, but also getting results for different things in Microsoft 365. This is nice, but many employees want to have a search experience that's dedicated to searching for people. Let's take a look at the People Finder experience in Go. As I was talking about, on the right-hand side, we've got our springboard. If I go up to People and click on it, you can see here I've got a dedicated People Finder experience. So I could search for somebody like Tim. You'll see here that I get Tim's information, including his phone number, mobile, his email, and I can start a chat with Tim. Of course, this is configurable, so it depends on what Entra ID information you want to show, but you could show job site, location, department, major project, allowing you to surface the information that's most important for your organization. What's also great is if I click on Tim's name, I get Tim's Microsoft 365 profile card. So I can see everything from who Tim works with to files and email attachments from Tim. And if Tim completed his bio, I could even see that. There's also even connections with LinkedIn. So a really rich experience. Of course, this also works if I maybe don't know who I'm looking for. So I want to find somebody in our marketing organization. So if I type in marketing, you can see here, I've got marketing people come back. And of course, I could use this to make marketing Toronto, narrow it, and have those folks come back. So a really great experience to find people across your organization. Now let's look at the process of finding an enterprise app. Many organizations have hundreds, if not thousands, of apps in their company. In SharePoint, you can use the Microsoft 365 App Launcher, which appears at the top left corner of the screen in most Microsoft 365 web-based apps. Although the App Launcher is configurable, it's primarily geared towards surfacing Microsoft apps. Locating, filtering, and pinning enterprise apps can be challenging, especially for organizations that have hundreds or thousands of different apps. Many organizations will put the big apps like SAP, Workday, Concur on the homepage of their intranet. But this really isn't helpful for apps that aren't used as often, or maybe they're used by a subset of your population. We built My Apps in Go to make this easy and make sure we're making your intranet the one-stop shop for everything an employee needs. Let's take a look. If I scroll down on the homepage, you'll notice My Apps. This is a web part that shows the favorite apps that an employee has pinned: my timesheets, my vacation leaves, benefits and claims, and pay stubs. I can also view all the apps, or I can reorder these. We do have some clients that use this homepage web part, but the vast majority keep My Apps in the springboard. If you click here, you'll notice that we've got the same set of apps that I've pinned here. In addition, I can actually search for company apps really quickly. So maybe I want to find our permit tracking app. I can type in permit, and you'll see here Permit Tracker appears. I can then pin that app if I want to, or click on it to go to the app if I don't want to pin it. You'll also notice at the bottom, we've got a few things here. We can go see all or reorder. So I'm going to go into see all. And now I've searched for permit. So I'm going to get that one app, which is the permit tracker. But let's get out of here and actually look at all our apps. You'll notice a few things. You'll notice that we can actually filter our apps. So we can filter the app by role or by category. Of course, this is configurable, so you can really set up any filtering criteria you want. You'll also notice here, we've got my suggested apps. So I can see apps that are suggested for me. And what we often see in a lot of clients is they'll pin those kind of big enterprise apps like the SAP, the Concur, the Workday. Those are apps that are pinned, sometimes ServiceNow. But then allowing employees to go in and pin those apps that they use all the time, it just makes the intranet an awesome place to go to start your day and to get to where you need to go. And we've got clients that have thousands of different apps that employees have access to, and this works really well for them. Speaking of apps, let's talk about ServiceNow integration. So many of our clients are using ServiceNow, and Microsoft and ServiceNow created a card for the Viva Connections dashboard to surface the tasks you have pending. Although this can be useful for some scenarios, on an intranet, it's often useful for users to see the status of service requests they have initiated. Let's take a look at Go's ServiceNow integration. If I return to the intranet and look in the springboard, we can see here I've got requests. This shows me all of my open and closed ServiceNow requests. I can click on a request and get into that request in ServiceNow. We've also extended these patterns to other enterprise platforms like Workday. It does take some work, but you can see how this springboard is a great place for this integration to live and how it brings even more value to your intranet. Next up is policies and resources. Some of the most important and frequently asked content on an intranet are things like policies, procedures, tools, and templates. In SharePoint, you can set up different sites or libraries to house your different policies. As you can see here, you can use a collaboration site with document libraries to house your policies. However, this is a little cumbersome, and we do hear from many organizations that struggle with people saving policies to their desktops, which can be problematic. We spent a lot of time figuring out how to make policies and resources easy to find and save for future use in Go. Let's take a look. I'm going to navigate to the Policies and Resources hub in the global navigation. You'll see here this is a one-stop shop related to everything regarding forms and templates, policies, resources, guidelines, and procedures. There's a few things to call out. The first is that you can search for a policy and resource. The second is you can browse them. So you can browse them by type, by topic, or other criteria that you want to set up. Some clients set up it by system, by department, by division. The possibilities are really endless. You'll also notice a few things on the right. The first is I've got a few policies that have been recently updated. As well, I've got policies that I've pinned, and I can see policies that I've recently pinned, or maybe I want to do it by alphabet. I can also see policies that have been updated or are new, or I can see policies that have been recently viewed. Maybe I forgot to pin a policy that I recently viewed. I can come back here and say, oh, it was the Embracing Social Responsibility policy that I didn't pin, but I recently viewed it, and maybe I want to pin it or open it again. You might wonder, what happens to policies if you pin it? Of course, they will appear on this page, but what's even more useful is if I go into the quick links area. You'll notice here that I've got my policies that I've pinned, and they're available one click away on the intranet. This is really important because ultimately, when it comes down to it, we're trying for people not to save these on their desktop. We want to make it really quick and easy. So these important policies that are pinned, they're always one click away on the springboard. I want to call your attention to one more feature that's really useful for policies and resources. Let me jump into this paid time off policy. So you can see we've got this robust policy here. The thing I wanted to call your attention to is acknowledgements. We do support acknowledgements and consent in Go, so I can actually acknowledge the policy, or maybe it's a type of policy that I can consent to and say yes or no, all of those supported. So a really, really nice way of having a one-stop shop for policies and resources in your company. Intranet governance is a big topic, and many communicators struggle making sure their intranet content is up to date and that content owners review content on a regular basis. We put a few features in Go that can help. Let's go back to our intranet. We're going to go back to our policies and resources area, and we're going to click on that paid time off policy. You'll notice something on the left-hand side. If I scroll down a little bit, you'll notice that we have content lifecycle. Content can have a review date. Let's take a look. So you can see here the next review date for this content is November 19th. It's actually past due. Content can have an owner, and you can get reminders that you have to review content. We've also got an admin center. Let's go into my quick links, and I'm going to go down to my links and click on the content lifecycle admin center. This is where your portal manager or administrator can manage all of the content ownership and keep track of if everybody's actually reviewing content on time. So you can see here, unfortunately, Tim has been slacking, and there's 2 content pieces that are actually overdue. Maybe Tim has a new role, he's got a new job. You can actually transfer ownership as well to another content owner, which really makes it easy to manage that review process and make sure that all your intranet content is always up to date and accurate. And finally, let's talk about the elephant in the room, SharePoint's out-of-the-box analytics. If there was something everyone we talked to agreed upon, it's that SharePoint's analytics were not up to snuff. SharePoint includes simple page, site, and search analytics, but they are hampered by limited data retention. For example, only data for the last 7, 30, or 90 days is available for page and site analytics. With out-of-the-box SharePoint, it's also difficult to track data across multiple hubs and sites, and analytics don't support audience segmentation by location, department, etc. And custom reporting in our dashboards are pretty hard to create. We created Helm Insights, which is available independently for people using SharePoint out of the box or complimentary for Go customers to really bring analytics and insight to life. Let's take a peek. This is Helm Insights. The first thing you'll notice at the top right is you can define a date range. So in this case, we're showing news articles that have been published between November 28th to November 26th. You'll notice I can find out the reach for my news, my reactions and responses, which generates a social engagement score, my response sentiment. We actually process comments through Azure Machine Learning to understand if the comments are positive, neutral, or negative. I can also dive into my highest performing news posts. As a communicator, different news has different purposes. You may have news that you expect really high reach for. In this case, you're scheduled for annual reviews. Or you may have news that you expect really high social engagement for. In this case, we're PowerPoint nerds, and we were really excited about our new PowerPoint template, and it generated a lot of social engagement in our organization. I can also see the lowest performing news posts. I can see raw metrics for our news. I can actually see the engagement and reach comparison by news post. I can see the breakdown by month. Let's dive into a news post here. I'm going to go into our land acknowledgement project. So you'll notice a few things on news posts. I can, of course, see the reach, reactions, and responses. I can see the social engagement, the response sentiment. We also do a textual analysis of the article. So I can see this is kind of an interesting article. It was written at a grade 11 readability, which is really high. It's got 1,663 words, which is really a lot. 2 acronyms, 3 questions, and 2 images. I can see the engagement and reach timeline, page sentiment, and response sentiment distribution. I can get those raw metrics that I would expect. But what I find really, really interesting is looking at things like the scroll depth. So in this article, you can see, as a communicator, super interesting data. 51% of people who looked at the article didn't browse more than 25%. But what was really fascinating in this long article was 41% went 75% or greater, which was really fascinating. I can also see my SharePoint browser and Teams browser. So you can see here, what's really interesting is 39% of people at Habanero actually looked at this article in Microsoft Teams, which shows the importance of this channel. And of course, we handle segmentation. So you can break down by office location, by department, or by title. There's a ton more to show in Helm, but I think it's one way we're ultimately bringing analytics to communicators and giving them the insight they need. Helm is awesome, but it is strictly focused on news. Go is completely wired up for Google Analytics, which is a tool that many communicators are familiar with and is very feature rich. So congrats, you made it to the end. But before we sign off, we thought we'd spend a little time talking about Viva Connections. Will, over to you.
Thanks, Ben. Great job. So if you've been assessing your intranet options from Microsoft, then you've likely heard of Viva Connections, or at the very least, Viva. Some companies we talk to, or actually many companies, have a lot of questions about what exactly it includes and what it doesn't. It can tend to be a bit confusing. Is it an intranet platform on its own? No, not really, but it does offer some intranet-like functionality in parts. It's important to note that Viva Connections is anchored within the Microsoft Teams interface, both the mobile and the desktop apps, not the web browser as SharePoint is. That said, it does provide some web parts that can be added into your SharePoint home site, such as the dashboard web part. Here we see the Viva Connections experience on a Teams desktop app. As part of the broader Viva suite, Viva Connections was introduced by Microsoft in 2021 with the goal of keeping employees engaged and informed. The role has evolved a bit since the launch, but Microsoft positions Viva Connections as the gateway to content and information that is served up by the collection of other Viva apps and services like Viva Engage, Viva Insights, or Viva Learning. Viva Connections also provides some intranet-like capabilities in Teams, including a feed of news from SharePoint sites, conversations and videos, as well as access to corporate tools and resources. We find Viva Connections is probably most applicable when it comes to accessing intranet content on your mobile device, as we see here in the Teams mobile app experience. It's important to note that users are defaulted into the dashboard view as opposed to the news feed. That's something that unfortunately can't be changed at the moment. The Viva Connections dashboard includes adaptive cards that link to tasks and resources and surface information and interact with different apps and data sources. As Ben showed earlier, third-party cards are made available from various companies like ServiceNow, and organizations can also build their own custom cards to display enterprise application data. In fact, we've built our own card for Go customers that can display the latest news and events and announcements based on the content preferences that they have set. Unfortunately, however, without additions like this, we've seen many organizations really struggle with the out-of-the-box Viva Connections experience. Why? Well, things like the lack of control over the display of enterprise news and the default into the dashboard view in the mobile experience have been challenging for employee communicators to really rely on. The promise of a rich ecosystem of third-party dashboard cards has really never come to fruition, or at least not yet. Most existing cards have been pretty lackluster in the actual value provided. And we've seen major partners like Workday who have delayed their card offerings indefinitely. So bottom line is, while we feel the underlying concept definitely has merit, in our opinion, Viva Connections still has a long way to go before organizations can truly benefit from it and have confidence in it. Well, that just about wraps up our session today. We covered a lot of ground. We hope you found it useful as you consider whether SharePoint alone is the platform for your next intranet. You can expect to see a couple things coming your way soon. First is a link to the recording of this webinar, should you wish to check it out again or forward to colleagues that might find it of interest as well. Second is a link to our guide, which explores the same topic, but it's a PDF and it contains lots of screenshots and other useful info. So watch for that. Ben showed many examples from our Go intranet platform, but there's certainly lots more than we can share. If you're interested in learning more about Go, please let us know and we can always schedule a follow-up demo. And also, if you have any questions or feedback on the content we covered today or additional topics you're curious about, please reach out. So thanks for joining us today and have a great day.